Good evening. You are watching the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. First, the headlines. His Excellency, the Minister responsible for Foreign Affairs, discusses enhancing the GCC joint action with Minister of Foreign Affairs of Saudi Arabia and Minister of Foreign Affairs of Bahrain. And the US-led coalition begins withdrawing its troops from Syria as Russia says the territory to be transferred to the Syrian government. Those were the headlines. Now for the news in detail. His Excellency Yusuf bin Alawi bin Abdullah, Minister responsible for Foreign Affairs, accompanied by His Excellency Dr. Abdul Latif bin Rashid al-Zayani, GCC Secretary General, met in Riyadh with His Excellency Dr. Ibrahim bin Abdulaziz al-Assaf, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Saudi Arabia. The two sides discussed enhancing the GCC joint action with the framework of the Sultanate's presidency of the GCC current session. The meeting was attended by senior officials at the Ministries of Foreign Affairs of the two countries, the Sultanate's ambassador to Saudi Arabia, and the Saudi ambassador to the Sultanate. In Manama, His Excellency Yusuf bin Alawi bin Abdullah, Minister responsible for Foreign Affairs, met with His Excellency Sheikh Khalid bin Ahmed Al Khalifa, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Bahrain, in the presence of His Excellency Dr. Abdul Latif bin Rashid al-Zayani, Gulf Cooperation Council Secretary General. The meeting comes within the framework of the visit made by the Minister responsible for Foreign Affairs to the GCC countries. The two sides exchanged viewpoints and consultations on enhancing and activating the GCC march in a manner that achieves objectives and aspirations of the GCC leaders, as well as achieving security and stability for the region and its people. The meeting was attended by His Excellency Mohammed bin Nasser al-Louhaibi, head of the GCC department at the Foreign Ministry, and His Excellency Abdullah bin Rashid al-Mdawli, the Sultanate's ambassador to Bahrain. The US-led coalition in Syria has begun withdrawing its troops less than a month after the US President Donald Trump made his shocking announcement. The force, which has battled the Daesh group since 2014, started scaling down, but it remained unclear how long the drawdown process would last. A spokesman told reporters today that the US-led anti-militant force began the process of their deliberate withdrawal from Syria. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights reported that the coalition had started scaling down its presence at Termelan airfield in Hasaka province in the northeastern Syria. Russia said today it was important for Syrian Kurds and the Syrian government to start talking to each other in light of US plans to withdraw its forces from Syria. A spokeswoman for Russia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs told reporters that the territory previously controlled by the United States should be transferred to the Syrian government. The spokeswoman said in this regard, establishing dialogue between the Kurds and Damascus takes on particular significance. After all, the Kurds are an integral part of the Syrian society. She told the same briefing that Moscow had the impression that the United States wanted to stay in Syria despite US President Donald Trump last month unexpectedly announcing a US withdrawal.
То, что правоохранительная система США использует теперь для сведения личных.
The UN envoy to Yemen said he was alarmed over the escalation of violence after a rebel drone attack on the country's largest airbase killed 6 loyalist soldiers. Martin Griffiths urged all parties to Yemen's protracted conflict to exercise restraint. The rebels said they carried out the strike, which hit a military parade at Al-Anad Air Base in government-held Lahish province, some 60 kilometers north of Yemen's second city, Aden. The attack comes as the UN, which brokered several agreements between the rebels and the government talks in Sweden last month, is desperately seeking to relaunch negotiations for an end of 4 years of the devastating conflict. Still to come on News Bulletin. Century-old Buenos Aires Theater gets new lease of life as bookstore. Welcome back to the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. German Chancellor Angela Merkel called Greece a strong member of the European Union on Friday during talks with the country's president Prokopis Pavlopoulos. Germany and Greece put years of tension over the painful Greek bailout program behind them Thursday, with Merkel praising the improvement of the country's finances. Many Greeks blame Merkel for the austerity they suffered for much of the past decade, which led to a sharp and prolonged recession and a bad deterioration in the living standards. Speaking on the topic of refugees, Merkel also acknowledged Germany had always made clear that the EU cannot leave Greece here alone. The meeting with Poulos followed talks with Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras as part of Merkel's two-day trip to Greece. Technical legislative amendments Ukraine's pleas to the Queen and a Twitter campaign to digitize a 19th century rulebook, some of the once obscure British parliamentary process that have become vital tools in the battle for Brexit. In the latest skirmish this week, opposition MPs and rebel members of Prime Minister Theresa May's Conservative Party began a campaign to amend legislation to make it harder for Britain to leave the EU in March 29 with no deal. After successfully changing the budget bill to restrict the government's taxation powers in a no-deal scenario, they pledged to force similar amendments to every other bill passing the House of Commons before Brexit. China's lunar probe has sent the first panoramic image of its landing site since its historic arrival on the far side of the moon, showing the catered landscape it's exploring. The change-form mission, named after a moon goddess, made the world's first soft landing on the moon's far side on January 3rd, a major step in China's ambitions to become a space superpower. A camera deployed on Change 4 took a photo that was released by the China National Space Administration today. The picture shows the gray moonscape, the lander, and the rover with the track marks it left behind. The image is a circular 360-degree shot, which scientists used to create another wide panoramic picture. The German army helped clear snow in Bavarian towns today after 5 districts declared a state of emergency due to heavy snow. In a town south of Salzburg and on the border with Austria, German soldiers removed large piles of snow from the roof of the local spa. Mayor Franz Rost said that around 100 roofs still needed to be cleared, and a team of experts would now prioritize which buildings would come first. In January 2006, 15 people were killed, 12 of them children, when the roof of an ice skating rink collapsed in heavy snow. Further north in the eastern state of Saxony, on the border with the Czech Republic, forest workers felled trees along a road leading through woods as a precaution. The snow on the pine trees weighs several tons and they could fall onto passing cars. A century-old theater in Buenos Aires has received a new lease of life after it was converted into a bookstore that has become an unlikely tourist destination in the Argentine capital. The Grand Splendid was originally opened in 1919, and in its glory days it was home to a variety of theatrical shows ranging from tango artists to plays. In the 90s, the building was destined for the wrecking ball, with the Argentine economy suffering at the time. The owner of Argentine bookstore chain Altino saved the day, spending millions in an extensive restoration of the former Grand Splendid into one of the world's most majestic bookstores. The bookstore gives a nod to its theatrical past, with the stage and its curtains still in place and its beautiful ceiling fully restored. All theater boxes provide private space for quiet read. Around 1 million people from Argentina and around the world visit the bookstore, a paradise for bookworms. Now for the general weather forecast around the Sultanate. Clear skies will prevail over most of the governorates, with chances of low clouds and fog late at night and early morning over the coast of the Arabian Sea. Winds will be southeasterly to south light to moderate. Seas will be slight with a maximum wave height of 1.25 meters. This is the Sultanate of Oman television. Before we end tonight's news bulletin, here are the main points once again. His Excellency, the Minister responsible for Foreign Affairs, discusses enhancing the GCC joint action with Minister of Foreign Affairs of Saudi Arabia and Minister of Foreign Affairs of Bahrain. And the U.S.-led coalition begins withdrawing its troops from Syria as Russia says the territory to be transferred to the Syrian government. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here at the newsroom and the studios, thank you for watching and have a great night.